My name is Avery Lane. I'm 34 years old, and last month my family told me Christmas was just for parents now. They said it casually, like they were commenting on the weather while I stood there holding a plate of mashed potatoes that suddenly felt heavier than my whole childhood. Vanessa smirked. My mom looked relieved. My dad didn't even blink. And in that moment, something inside me cracked quietly, cleanly. But what they didn't know was that their little announcement was about to cost them far more than my seat at the table. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever had someone in your own family make you feel small, invisible, or replaceable. Stories like this aren't just mine. They happen in quiet kitchens and living rooms full of holiday lights, in families that pretend everything's fine. If any of this feels familiar, stay with me. I didn't always understand how easily a family can erase you. When you grow up inside the same walls with the same holiday rituals, the same shared jokes about burnt pies and tangled Christmas lights, you think belonging is permanent. You think love is something you inherit, not something you have to earn over and over. But looking back now, I can trace the first crack all the way to a December night when I was 8 years old, standing on a step stool in our old lane kitchen, scrubbing cookie dough off a bowl, while Chloe and Jordan got to decorate the Christmas tree. The living room glowed golden. I could hear them laughing, the ornaments clinking like tiny bells. Marilyn's voice floated in warm and indulgent. Chloe, sweetheart, put the angel a little higher. Jordan bragged about how tall he'd gotten that year. And me? My mother handed me a sponge and said, Avery, be a good helper. That phrase became my childhood name tag. Good helper. Not my daughter. Not a kid. Just the one who filled in the gaps. I didn't know it then, but that tiny moment, hands in soapy water while my siblings played, would matter later. Another memory, I must have been 12. A school assembly. I'd won an award for a science project that took me weeks. I stayed up late building a model of a solar system using wire hangers and ping-pong balls, each one painted by hand. But when the principal called my name, my family clapped politely, took one picture, and 5 minutes later Mom was fussing over Chloe's new haircut, telling her she looked like a movie star. On the drive home, the back seat smelled like French fries and winter coats. Chloe leaned on Mom's shoulder with her glittery hair clip shining. Dad reached back and squeezed Jordan's knee when he joked about becoming the next astronaut in the family. No one mentioned my award, not once. I pressed my ribbon flat against my thigh the whole ride, pretending that the silence didn't sting. I swallowed it. But it was deeper than I thought. Years later, when I was 19, I worked a miserable part-time job at a grocery store. Fluorescent lights flickering overhead, customers snapping fingers, carts squeaking like they were begging to be put out of their misery. I saved every spare dollar because Mom mentioned she could really use a little help with the bills during the holidays. I thought helping meant love. I thought giving meant belonging. So I handed her an envelope with my savings tight and awkward in my uniform. She smiled, hugged me quickly, and thanked me. But 2 days later, I learned she gave the money to Chloe so she could buy a dress for winter formal. She needs it, honey, Mom said. You're always so practical. Your sister deserves something pretty. I nodded. Of course. Practical. Reliable. The helper. Meanwhile, the dress was sapphire blue, sparkly, and cost almost everything I'd worked for. Chloe twirled in it like she owned the world, like she didn't even realize what it cost me. I swallowed it. Again. And the wound sank deeper. Then came my early 20s. That was when I met Derek, tall, confident, charming, in that careless way that makes you think he'll change for you. He didn't. He broke up with me the week before Christmas over a text message while I was standing in line at Target holding wrapping paper with tiny gold stars. I remember blinking at my phone, staring at the words, "It's not working." Sorry, as the couple behind me argued about stocking stuffers. The world didn't pause. Not for me. I drove home in the dark, the heater blasting the roads icy. And my family. They comforted me the way people comfort a neighbor, not a daughter whose heart had just been scraped raw. Mom said, "Men don't know what they want until they have kids. You'll understand someday." Dad patted my shoulder like I was a coworker going through a rough patch. Jordan and Chloe exchanged a look, something between pity and amusement. Their comfort wasn't really comfortable. It was a dismissal wrapped in holiday lights. I didn't know it back then, but every one of those moments was building towards something I wouldn't be able to ignore forever. My family's love always came with fine print, even if I didn't notice the clauses until years later. Take the night of my wedding rehearsal, for example. Derek and I were barely holding together by then. We'd been fighting for months, but my family treated our unraveling relationship like an inconvenience, not a warning sign. Marilyn fluttered around the church hall, straightening tablecloths and fussing with fake poinsettias, smiling so hard her cheeks looked painted on. At one point, she pulled me aside, smoothed a crease in my dress, and said, "Whatever you two are going through, just make it work. Marriage is about sticking it out for the children." I remember staring at her, feeling that familiar hollow drop in my stomach. "We don't have kids," I whispered. She didn't blink. "You will. And everything will make sense then." Maybe that was the moment I realized I was living inside a script she'd written long before I was born. I was supposed to follow it, smile, nod, produce grandchildren. And if I didn't, well, then my value was negotiable. The marriage didn't last. Of course it didn't. I filed for divorce on a rainy Thursday afternoon, when the lawyer's office smelled like wet carpet and burnt coffee. Derek didn't fight it. He didn't even show up. He just sent a short email that said, "Hope we can both move on." But when I broke the news to my family, I didn't get comfort. I got an analysis. Dad sighed. "You give up too easily, Avery." Mom said, "You'll understand what you lost when you have children someday." Chloe patted my back like I'd failed a test. Jordan avoided eye contact entirely. Rusty was the only one who stayed close. He sat beside me, head on my knee, while I cried in the dark of my apartment. The only warmth in the room came from him. I didn't know it then, but he would become the anchor I held on to the night my family cut me out of Christmas. Time moved on, and so did I quietly. I poured myself into my job. Long shifts, late nights, sick kids with trembling hands grabbing mine. I liked being needed. It felt honest. It felt real. Children didn't ask whether you were married or successful. They just wanted kindness. I also became inseparable from Jordan's kids. Little Micah and Lily adored me, and I adored them right back. I went to school plays, soccer games, birthday parties with handmade pirate hats, and cupcakes that tasted like too much vanilla. Every time I showed up, their faces lit up like I was the sun. But I should have known unconditional love from children doesn't erase the conditional love of adults. One Thanksgiving stands out years before the parent-only Christmas blow. The house smelled like sage butter and cinnamon rolls. Everyone was in the kitchen, except me. I was folding laundry in the guest room because Mom said, "You're just faster at it, Avery." When I finally walked into the dining room, Vanessa was whispering something to Marilyn. They both laughed. But the second they saw me, Vanessa put on that sugary smile she's famous for. "Oh, Avery finally joining us." It hit like a slap wrapped in silk. That night when I handed Mom a pie I'd spent hours baking. She barely glanced at it before fussing over the one Vanessa bought from a bakery. "This one is just so elegant," she gushed, holding it up like a centerpiece. I didn't say anything. I just took my seat at the far end of the table, the one they always saved for me because it was closest to the kitchen. That was the explanation every year. Closest to the kitchen. Closest to work. As if that was my role. The helper, the quiet one, the reliable extra. Another memory surfaced one night on the cruise, but at the time, I couldn't shake it. When I was 25, I bought everyone Christmas gifts. I couldn't afford leather gloves for Dad, a sweater for Mom, a new tablet case for Chloe, a watch band for Jordan. They thanked me politely, but the gifts they gave me, a scented candle and a mug with the words, "Best aunt ever." I thanked them. I smiled. But something inside me curled inward and dimmed like a flame protected from a windstorm, yet still growing smaller each year. I didn't know it then, but I was training myself to accept scraps. I was training myself to disappear. And eventually, that disappearing act would give me the one thing I never expected: clarity sharp enough to cut through their entire illusion of family. All of it led to the night in that warm kitchen when they told me Christmas wasn't for me anymore. All of it led to the moment I put the plate down, felt the room tilt, and realized I was standing in a life where I didn't belong. Not really. And it was finally time to stop pretending. The unraveling didn't happen in one night. It stretched itself thin over weeks. Quiet comments, sidelong glances, texts that felt like they were written with a smile and a knife. The first real fracture came the Sunday after Thanksgiving when the leftovers were still stacked in plastic containers and the house smelled faintly of reheated gravy. Vanessa sent a group message about streamlining Christmas plans, something she'd never cared about before. She wrote, "I was thinking this year should be simple. Maybe just parents and kids, it'd make things easier. Easier for who she didn't say anything. She didn't have to." Chloe sent a thumbs up emoji. Jordan said nothing, which was his specialty. Mom replied with, "That might make sense." And my dad, who never used emojis, added a rare one, a tiny green check mark like he was approving a budget change. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering, waiting for someone to say, "It didn't feel right." No one did. My chest tightened, a slow, familiar squeeze. I typed back, meaning what exactly? Then waited. 3 dots blinked, then vanished. 5 minutes later, Vanessa finally responded. "Oh, Avery, sorry, I just meant the gathering would be less chaotic. Since, you know, you don't have little ones to keep up with the group events. We didn't want you to feel overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. Right. Because nothing says we care about you like telling you you're too fragile to sit on a couch and drink cocoa. I didn't fight. I just put my phone down and walked Rusty around the block until the cold air numbed the sting. The world outside was quiet, holiday lights flickering in windows, someone burning wood in a backyard fire pit, the sound of kids giggling somewhere in the distance. Normal life kept happening even as mine started bending into a shape I didn't recognize. I didn't know it then, but that message was only the first cut. The second came when Chloe texted me privately later that week. The message started with, "Hey sis," which she only used when she wanted something softened. She wrote, "If you end up going on a solo trip or something, maybe don't post too much. Mom's been really stressed. Just trying to keep things peaceful." Peaceful for who? Certainly not for me. I replied, "I haven't decided anything yet," even though the words felt like lies. Something inside me was already pushing, shifting, refusing to shrink. She didn't answer. Another Lane specialty. Then came the third cut, sharper, deeper. I was finishing a long shift at the clinic, my scrubs smelling faintly of antiseptic and warm formula, when Ruby called. "Are you sitting down?" she asked. "I'm in my car," I said. "Why, I ran into Lauren, you know, Vanessa's Pilates friend. She said Vanessa's been telling people you're, how did she put it, emotionally unstable right now. That Christmas might be too much for you." The steering wheel turned into ice under my hands. She said what Ruby didn't soften it. She never did. She's painting you like some delicate little mess, like they're doing you a favor by excluding you. My breath caught. The air in the car felt tight, too small. I stared at the windshield, the parking lot lights reflected in the glass like blurry stars. "Are you okay?" Ruby asked. "I'm fine," I said. But my voice didn't sound like mine. I drove home in silence, Rusty's tail thumping when I opened the door. His brown eyes looking up at me like he knew something was wrong. I knelt beside him on the kitchen floor, burying my face in his fur, warm and steady, the only living thing in my world that never made me feel like extra weight. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake replaying everything, every childhood moment, every small dismissal, every time they treated my feelings like inconveniences. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, something hardened inside me. Not anger? Not yet. Something colder. Like steel being tempered. The next morning, the sun rose pale and watery behind the blinds. I made coffee, held the mug with both hands, and stared at the blinking cursor on my phone. Vanessa had sent a voice message, something she rarely did unless she wanted to do the heavy lifting. I pressed play. "Avery, hey, I just wanted to check in. I know holidays can be complicated for you. We're just trying to avoid any drama this year. It's nothing personal. You know we love you. Nothing personal. You know we love you." If someone has to say it, it's probably not true. I deleted the message not out of anger, but because hearing her voice felt like letting acid drip into my chest. Then came the fourth cut, Mom's social media post. A photo of the house decorated for Christmas, twinkling lights everywhere, stockings hung on the mantel in perfect symmetry. She captioned it, "Family is everything." My stocking wasn't there, not even in the background, not even tucked behind someone else's. Just gone. I stared at the screen so long Rusty nudged my arm, whining softly. That photo didn't feel like an oversight. It felt intentional, like a quiet edit, a soft erasure, the kind families pretend it is an accident. And still I said nothing. I didn't know it then, but my silence was the first step toward reclaiming everything they had taken from me. The fifth cut was the deepest yet. Vanessa sent a message to the family group chat titled Coordinating Plans. I opened it with a mixture of dread and resignation. She wrote, "We decided it's best if Avery sits this year out. Just to keep things simple. Love you, Av. Love you, Av." With an exclamation point, like she was signing off a holiday card to a coworker. Mom replied, "We think it's for the best, sweetheart." Dad added, "Less stressful for everyone. Less stressful for everyone." As if my presence was a burden they were relieved to drop. I put my phone down. I walked to the sink, turned on the faucet. Let cold water run over my hands until my fingers go numb. Rusty sat silently beside me, his breath steady, the only rhythm in the room. I didn't cry. Not yet. The pain was too sharp for tears. It was a clean slice, the kind that doesn't bleed until later. And I knew in that moment something fundamental had shifted. They weren't my safe place. They weren't even my home. Not anymore. The night they finally said the words out loud, "Christmas is just for parents this year," I didn't scream or argue. I didn't even blink. I just stood there, in their warm kitchen, listening to the hum of the dishwasher and the soft crackle of the fireplace, like I was underwater, like sound had lost its shape. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad kept shifting his weight, clearing his throat like he had allergies. Vanessa leaned against the counter with her arms crossed, wearing that polite smile she saved for PTA meetings and petty cruelty. Chloe held her phone like a shield. Jordan stared at the floor the same way he always did when trouble required a spine. I set my plate down, carefully, quietly. And I said, "Got it." Vanessa tilted her head like she'd won something. "It's not personal, Avery. We're just trying to focus on the kids this year. Focus on the kids." The phrase slid under my skin like a fish hook. Mom added, "It's temporary, sweetheart. You can come next year. When things settle. Settle." I wondered if she heard the way that sounded like my mere existence created disruption. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I didn't. I grabbed my coat, kissed the top of Lily's head, whispered to Micah that I loved him, and walked out. I could feel Vanessa watching me, waiting for me to crack. But I didn't. Not in front of her. I drove home in silence. The kind of silence that presses against your ribs and makes it hard to breathe. Rusty met me at the door, nails tapping on the floor tail, wagging like he could hold me together by will alone. I knelt beside him and finally let the tears come. They weren't loud or dramatic. They were the soundless kind, the kind that seep out of the places you've spent years trying to seal shut. I cried until the floor beneath me felt cold, until my throat ached, until I was empty. And when I was empty, something else filled the space. Clarity. It rose slowly like dawn behind storm clouds, not warm, not gentle, sharp. I made a decision without realizing I had made one. The next morning, I opened my laptop, intending to drown myself in work emails. But the search bar was already there, blinking. Like my subconscious had been working overtime. I typed solo Christmas trips, then holiday cruises, then 12-day Caribbean. And then I saw a photo of a massive white ship, sunlight glinting off its hull, a private balcony overlooking an ocean the color of turquoise glass. Departure December 20th, return January 1st. I clicked through every photo, pools that looked like they were carved from the sky, restaurants with flickering candles and wide windows, a spa bathed in soft gold light, a deck where fireworks would reflect off the water on New Year's Eve. My heart thudded. Hard, dangerous. It felt reckless, expensive, indulgent. It also felt like oxygen. Without letting myself overthink it, I clicked, book now. The confirmation email hit my inbox with a soft chime, a sound that felt like freedom. Over the next 2 days, I became someone I had never allowed myself to be. I got my hair done, not the practical trim I usually got, but warm honey highlights that made me look like someone who belonged in sunlight. I bought a deep green dress, the kind you wear when you want to be noticed without saying a word. A swimsuit that felt bold. Sandals that didn't apologize. At the salon, a stranger said, "Your eyes are gorgeous. People probably tell you that all the time." I smiled. Not really. She frowned like that didn't make sense. I didn't realize until later how much that moment would matter. While I packed, my phone kept buzzing. Group texts, photos of ornaments. Vanessa sends cheerful updates. Mom sent pictures of cookies the kids decorated. No one mentioned what they had done. No one apologized. No one asked if I was okay. They assumed, as always, that I'd accept the scraps and stay quiet. 3 days before the cruise, I posted a simple photo of Rusty wrapped in a blanket, captioned, "New adventures coming soon." Mom replied, "Oh, where are you going?" Chloe added, "Don't make it a big thing." Vanessa wrote, "Hope you're doing something relaxing. You need it." I didn't reply. The night before my flight, Chloe sent another private message. "Avery, Mom is worried you're pulling away. Maybe try to keep things low-key, at least until after the holidays." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing, "I'll think about it." But I wasn't going to think about it. I'd already made my choice. Leaving home the next morning felt like stepping out of a life that had been shrinking around me for years. The sky was gray, soft fog hanging low like the world was holding its breath. I loaded my suitcase into the car, locked my front door, and whispered to Rusty, "This year, I choose me." The flight to Miami felt like moving through a dream. Clouds outside the window, strangers shifting in their seats, the faint hum of engines drowning out everything else. When I stepped off the plane, warm air hit me thick and sweet with the scent of ocean salt. The port glittered under the sun. The ship rose in front of me like a promise. On board, everything felt clean and foreign and wide open, but something inside me was tight, pulsing, waiting. That night, I took my first photo. Just me standing on the balcony, in the green dress, the ocean behind me. Soft ship lights turning the water into liquid gold. I posted it with a caption so simple it might as well have been a whisper. "Choosing myself this Christmas," and that whisper turned into a storm. "Mom, Avery. Where are you, Chloe? This seems dramatic." Jordan. "You should have told us." Vanessa. "Interesting choice for the holidays." I didn't respond, because for once my silence wasn't submission, it was power. And they felt it. I didn't plan for my absence to shake them. I didn't post to hurt them. I posted because, for the first time in my life, I was somewhere I actually wanted to be. But the thing about people who only value you when you're quiet is this: the moment you stop performing your role, they lose their sense of control. And they panic. By the third day on the ship, the messages had shifted from confused to frantic. Mom's tone went from, "Where are you?" to "People are asking why you're not here." Vanessa's tone went from faux sweet to sharp. Chloe tried to guilt me. Jordan tried to mediate. But I let the messages sit unread. I wasn't punishing them, I was just living. The real climax didn't begin with a text, though. It started with a stranger. On the fourth night after a day in St. Thomas, where I waded into water so clear it looked unreal, I went to dinner, dressed in that deep green gown I bought the week before. The dining room glowed with low lighting. Glasses clinked. Soft music drifted between tables. Caleb looked up the second I walked in. He smiled, not flirtatious, not heavy, just warm. "You look like you finally slept," he said. "I think I did," I replied, sitting down. We ate. We talked. Elena teased me for the way I kept glancing at my buzzing phone like it was an alarm I couldn't shut off. Theo cracked jokes about families, his sarcasm edged with truth. Then, as dessert came out, berries over a vanilla custard that smelled like fresh sugar, my phone buzzed again. A voice message from Vanessa. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. "Avery, this is getting out of hand. You're broadcasting every detail of your trip. You're making people think something's wrong with us." She stopped, then added in a tone slick with honey, "It's Christmas. Don't ruin it." Elena watched my expression shift. "Family trouble?" she asked softly. "Family pattern," I said. After dinner, I walked to the upper deck alone. The wind was warm, carrying the scent of salt and sunscreen. The deck lights cast everything in a soft, golden glow. I leaned against the railing, the ocean endless and black beneath me. My phone buzzed again. An unknown sender on the cruise app. "They only remember you when you're silent." I froze. I looked around instinctively. People laughing, couples taking photos, kids running in swimsuits. No one seemed to be watching me. But the message lodged itself somewhere deep, sharp, and unsettling. I didn't know who sent it. But I felt seen. Exposed. I didn't reply. Instead, I watched the water move under the moonlight until my heartbeat settled. The next morning in St. Martin, I took a photo of my legs stretched toward the shoreline, sunlight glittering off the water. I captioned it, "Merry Christmas to me." That was when everything cracked. "Mom, this is unnecessary." "Chloe, why are you doing this?" "Jordan, Dad is upset. Just call them." "Vanessa, this feels spiteful." Spiteful. The woman who uninvited me from Christmas was calling me spiteful. I didn't answer, not even when Vanessa followed up with a long paragraph about family image and public perception. Not even when Mom sent a voice message crying softly saying she didn't mean for it to go this far. Not even when Jordan sent a photo of Lily and Micah holding a sign that said, "We miss you, Aunt Avery." That one almost broke me. But I held firm. Because if I went running back now, everything I'd learned, every inch I'd reclaimed, would crumble. In the Bahamas during the dolphin encounter, something cracked open inside me in a different way. When Luna the dolphin nudged my cheek and chirped, I laughed a real laugh, light and startling. The trainer snapped a photo. I posted it. Caption: "She showed me more affection in 5 seconds than some people did all year." Chaos followed. "Mom, why would you say that, Chloe? This is making things worse." "Jordan, what do you want from us, Vanessa? If you're going to attack us publicly, at least have the decency to talk first." Attack. Publicly. Decency, every word a twist of the knife. But for the first time in my life, I felt steady, clear, whole. That night, after a slow, warm sunset, the ship held its New Year's Eve party. Strings of white lights hung over the open deck. People danced barefoot. Champagne glasses sparkled. The ocean reflected bursts of gold and green as the first fireworks bloomed overhead. Caleb found me leaning against the railing again. "You look different," he said. "Different good or different bad? Different free?" I didn't answer. I just watched the fireworks and felt a quiet shift inside me, something like acceptance, something like rebirth. At midnight, I took a single photo of the fireworks reflecting on the water. No caption, no commentary. Just the truth. And maybe it was that final post. Or maybe it was the silence afterward. But when the ship docked in Miami on January 1st, my family was waiting. All of them. Mom, Dad, Chloe, Jordan, Vanessa, the kids, holding their coats, eyes red, faces tight. Like they had been losing sleep. Like they had finally realized I wasn't coming back the same person. Jordan stepped forward first. "Avery, we need to talk." And that was when I knew. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the reckoning. The drive from the airport to my parents' house felt like a rerun of a show I used to watch before I understood the plot. No one spoke. The air inside the car was tight, packed with things they didn't know how to admit and things I no longer felt obligated to explain. When we pulled into the driveway, the Christmas lights were still up, flickering softly in the cold January air, like the house hadn't gotten the memo that the holiday was over. Inside the living room was exactly as I'd left it over a month before. The same stockings, the same ornaments, the same tree drooping slightly under the weight of its decorations. Except one thing was missing. My stocking. It was nowhere in sight. We sat in a circle, me on the couch, them scattered like shaken pieces of a puzzle trying to reassemble themselves. Dad cleared his throat first. "We handled things wrong," he said. The words came out stiff like they weren't used to leaving his mouth. Mom nodded quickly, eyes glossy. "We didn't think about how it would make you feel, sweetheart." I didn't say anything. Not because I couldn't, but because I wanted to see how far they were willing to go without me cushioning the blow. Then Jordan spoke, voice low. "You should know. The whole family meeting at the airport, that wasn't Mom's idea. Or Dad's." He paused. It was Vanessa's. Vanessa stiffened. "I just thought we should show unity." No, Jordan cut in, surprising everyone. "You wanted to fix the optics. People were asking where Avery was, and you didn't like how that looked." Silence cracked through the room. That was my moment. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. "Funny you mention optics," I said, tapping the screen, "because Mom accidentally forwarded me one of your emails, Vanessa." Her face went pale. I read the line verbatim. "Avery needs to learn her place." No one breathed. Not even the kids. Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, "I didn't mean, but I wasn't there for excuses. I wasn't there for the performance." I stood. My voice is calm, almost gentle. I'm not incomplete, I'm not in the extra seat, and I'm done shrinking so everyone else can stay comfortable. The room shifted around those words. Something in it tilted irreversible. That was the real revenge, not shouting, not breaking, not proving anything. Just showing them who I had become without them. Showing them the woman they underestimated. And walking out with my head high, knowing they finally understood the cost of losing me. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe. Stories like mine aren't rare, they're just rarely spoken out loud. And if any part of this cracked something open in, this, you're not alone. And you're not wrong for wanting more than scraps. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because this journey, this shift, this reclaiming doesn't end here. Not for me. Not for you. This story isn't over.